For rare earths, particularly in the European context, I think what we're seeing is the weaponization of global trade. So earlier this year, we had China had introduced export restrictions. They were relaxed in July, but what that did was they sent shockwaves through the supply chain and the manufacturers who rely on those critical raw material supply, seeing volatility in prices, specifically for dysprosium and terbium.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Kurt Budge, CEO of Leading Edge Materials, a development company with a portfolio of critical minerals in the European Union. Kurt, welcome to the show. Actually, welcome back to the show. It is great to have you.
Hello, Lucian.
Interesting times, definitely, for critical minerals. Geopolitically, in every way. So let's start maybe with, for the new listeners, unfamiliar with your company, with Leading Edge. Can you provide us an overview of the company? We will start from here.
So Leading Edge Materials is a Canadian company listed in Toronto and Stockholm, but also traded in New York and Frankfurt. We have a portfolio of critical raw materials projects all located in the EU. In Sweden, we've got a heavy rare earths project called Norra Kärr. In Sweden also, we have our Woxna graphite mine. And then in Romania, we have an exploration alliance focused on polymetallics, nickel, cobalt, lead, zinc, copper.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, challenging times and interesting times for having a critical minerals portfolio. So my question is, how is the current state of geopolitics benefiting your company's assets?
Well, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime generational opportunity because of everything that's going on in the world. We see geopolitical uncertainty is the new norm, and especially with in respect of, it used to be the energy transition, but now it's the energy transition and defense, and that puts our assets firmly in the spotlight. Really, when it comes to heavy rare earth elements, they're critically important for permanent magnet supply chains. And those permanent magnets go into both electric vehicles, but also defense applications. So our project portfolio is front of mind. And what we have with graphite, we have near-term production opportunities with Norra Kärr, maybe a few more years down the road, but still strategically important for Europe. And then the exploration alliance in Romania gives us some sort of longer-term diversification, which is also beneficial to the company.
Yeah, Kurt, if you don't mind, let's cover the big picture. What does the big picture look like for rare earths elements and, of course, natural graphite?
Well, for rare earths, particularly in the European context, I think what we're seeing is the weaponization of global trade. So earlier this year, we had China had introduced export restrictions. They were relaxed in July, but what that did was they sent shockwaves through the supply chain and the manufacturers who rely on those critical raw material supply, seeing volatility in prices, specifically for dysprosium and terbium, which this is what makes Norra Kärr unique. It's heavy rare earth composition, and those two key metals. That has created nervousness, basically, which isn't going to go away. The EU managed to negotiate a relaxation of those export restrictions in July, but again, that nervousness isn't going away. And policy like the Critical Raw Materials Act that came into force last year, that was there really to create these secure and reliable supply chains. So I think this is putting the spotlight on how the EU can establish those supply chains. When it comes to graphite, the forecast demand for graphite is supposed to grow by 140% by 2030. And within that analysis done by Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, there's a huge number of new mines that are required. Now, with Woxna, we have an established mine. It's sitting there. We've got infrastructure and we've got permits. So we have this opportunity to play a part in, again, securing up supply chains within the European region for customers that want to have non-Chinese flake graphite production or supply. So the dynamics around both rare earth elements and graphite put our assets in a really good position.
Yeah, you have three assets. So Norra Kärr, Romanian exploration, and Woxna, of course. So you basically have three district business areas. So my question is, where is your focus?
My focus and the company's focus is very much first and foremost on Norra Kärr. That is, it's a project that is relatively unique in European terms. It's the most advanced, and it's one of the largest heavy rare earth deposits that in the near term is medium term is available for production and getting into production and making a meaningful contribution to secure and reliable supply chains. So Norra Kärr this year, we've been moving through making further submissions with regards to getting a mining lease, and we've also started pre-feasibility study work streams. So Norra Kärr has taken a lot of my time and also energy, but it's a project which has tremendous potential and could be transformational, transformational for the company. Woxna is a sort of second order. It's a near-term cash flow generator potentially. So what we announced earlier this year was having a rethink about a 2022 restart plan that was done. And that's what we're working on at the moment, basically to come up with a new business plan for the project that then gives us the opportunity to talk to potential customers and funders. And then, as I touched on before, Romania gives us some diversification. It's got the right address. It's in the Tethyan Belt, and it's also it's a brownfield exploration opportunity. So we've got access to extensive underground development, and also really interesting mineralization: nickel, cobalt, lead, zinc, copper. So just to be clear, Norra Kärr is a priority because I think that's the biggest value generator for our investors and shareholders, and then assets like Woxna and Norra Kärr also have Bihor Sud also have their place in terms of creating value.
Yeah, as you know, I am from Europe, from Croatia, and a lot of my followers are European followers. Let's try to understand this better. What makes Norra Kärr so critically important to Europe?
Well, it's not just the company saying it. Norra Kärr was discovered by the Swedish Geological Survey in the 1900s. And then from a Swedish perspective, it was designated national interest for its minerals and metals importance, and specifically its rare earths and how they could make a difference to both Swedish and European supply chains. So its composition, it starts with its geology. It's a significant deposit of heavy rare earth elements, and they are critically important to the manufacture of permanent magnets in Europe, and those supply chains are already developing. So it starts with the geology, and I guess in terms of the overall development timeline as a project being studied, it's got 15 years of technical work. So in 2021 we did a preliminary economic assessment. This was really to add in the additional value that's generated by industrial minerals, because we've got a project which is not only going to generate heavy rare earth elements, but is also going to generate substantial volumes of nepheline cyanide, for which there are key commercial opportunities. And this is something that I described earlier in the year that we believe is really going to boost the economics of Norra Kärr. So we've got a really economically viable project sitting in the heart of Europe. Sweden is a tremendous jurisdiction for developing mining assets, and so that's what makes Norra Kärr so unique.
Good answer. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a new call for strategic project application that was announced some few days ago. My question is, will the company will company participate in this?
Yes, we will. I said, straight after we didn't get on the first list of 47 projects, I said that we would reapply. Strategic project status brings significant advantages, these legal timeframes for permitting, but also enabling conversations with to secure finance for the project. And we are in a really good position because we made an application the first time round. We got really direct feedback from the EU. We've been able to make progress on lots of different areas. So by the time the deadline comes around in January, we're going to have a really comprehensive application to have a good crack at to getting strategic project status. And what was surprising the first time round is that with an asset like Norra Kärr, again, it's not just me saying that it's unique and strategically important. It's been part of the European conversation around potential mining assets that could help the region become strategically autonomous and reduce its overdependency on China for heavy rare earth elements for more than a decade. So, we've just got to join up the dots with the feedback we got from the EU the first time round, and I think we'll have a very strong application.
Okay, you said, sorry, the deadline is in January, right?
It is in January, yes.
Okay, let's return to Woxna. How are your plans for development and potential restart of production over there?
Yeah, so there was a restart plan done in 2022, which is what we're using as the basis for doing further test work. We're looking at what modifications we might make to the processing plant to be able to produce high quality flake graphite concentrate. We've got test work programs underway at the moment. The findings from those programs will then inform our revision of a new business case for Woxna. So this year, what we've seen is the supply chain coming to us and saying, "You've got a graphite asset. We're interested in buying flake graphite concentrate because we're looking to diversify our supply chain away from primary raw materials coming from China." And let's not get it wrong. I'm not playing a downer on China. China is going to be an important trading partner for the region going forward, but it's healthy for the region to have alternative supply options, and this is where Woxna fits in. So that was the starting point, and we already had done the work back in 2022. So we have a good understanding of what's required. But there have been innovations that have taken place in the last 20 odd years that Woxna has existed. So we've got significant study work and learnings that we can really capitalize on now to make sure that any restart of Woxna is a sustainable plan.
Okay, let's touch a bit on Romania as well. How is the progress over there? It has been somewhat slower than you envisioned, if I may call it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we have taken a very methodical approach with what we do in Romania. Safety has come first because clearly it's good to have access to underground development, but then you've got to, if it hasn't been been worked for many years, you have to make sure that it's safe for your employees to go underground. So safety and regulatory compliance, and then a very methodical approach to the exploration targets that we have we've identified. The progress has been slow, as you rightly point out, and then in the summer we got this additional sort of operational license for Avram Yanku. And so what that did, because it's such a significant area, Avram Yanku, in terms of the whole license area, that we took the opportunity to say, look, we really need to reassess what are the ranking of opportunities and the targets that we are going to investigate and explore. And from that, we decided to do a competent persons report. And so that process has already started, and we've got somebody on site this week who's working on that for us. And that will pull everything together into a comprehensive document, which gives us basically the roadmap for Romania, but also we want to give ourselves the opportunities to attract alternative sources of financing. So we're not having to fund all the exploration activity in Romania using the funds that Leading Edge generates. We're potentially looking for partners. We haven't given up on the potential. It's got the right address. It's the Tethyan Belt, which has been responsible for many significant discoveries over decades. And we've got both battery metals and also base metals. So you got your nickel, cobalt, and we got some high grade results back in 2023. And then you've also got lead, zinc, copper. So, and potentially precious metals, but the lead, zinc, copper is the focus. So lots of potential. We just haven't had sufficient funding and made sufficient progress to be able to put all that potential into the daylight. And so the competent persons report is the next milestone, really, to have that clear roadmap and be able to have sensible discussions with other financiers.
Yeah, when you mention founding, it's the money is of course always the important piece of the puzzle. You completed the financing in August. You must be pleased with that as investors who participate. How did that went?
Probably not the best time of the year to do a financing, just before the summer. And I have to be honest, some of my peers who are in the gold space seem to clear up when it comes to retail investors. I think it remains a very tough market for companies that have development projects. And even when you've got a project of the significance of Norra Kärr, and I need to do a better job of explaining the potential, both strategically for Europe because of the heavy rare earths, but commercially for investors because of the nepheline cyanide and the boost of the economics that can generate. So getting the funds into the company really allows us to keep moving forward. And what we've got activity taking place all over the company, as I've described, progress being made with Norra Kärr on pre-feasibility study work streams, the restart plan for Woxna, and then the competent persons report for Bihor Sud. So there's lots of activity taking place, and junior mining companies need to secure the finance to do all that work and create shareholder value.
Yeah, but do you believe that the future milestones improve the company's position when it comes to future or further fundraising?
I think taking a step forward on Norra Kärr by submitting further supplementary information in support of our mining lease application. I've said previously that I would be hopefully optimistic of a decision this year, but permitting historically is an uncertain process. So, if it's a Christmas present that I get, that would be the Christmas present that I want. But that is transformational. Getting a permit for a mining lease is one of those key milestones that de-risk the project, and then life becomes somewhat easier. And also that and pre-feasibility study work streams, moving that forward and really validating the economic case and the technical feasibility of what we're proposing. Let's not forget, this project has already had a pre-feasibility study done in 2015. And what we've done with the later technical work is just enhance the commercial prospects of the project because of the contribution that industrial minerals can make. So wrapping that all up together, and at the same time in parallel running the strategic project process for Norra Kärr, means that you've got sort of three key things: mining lease decision, pre-feasibility study, and the strategic project designation. So that really totally transforms the face of that project and the company. And then at the same time, in terms of near-term cash flow, we've got the possibility of putting Woxna back into production, and we won't do that off on our own. I believe the era of collaboration within the European Union, the ability of the upstream to move downstream, the downstream just wants secure supply, and I think the commercial arrangements, we're in this together. So, we want to make sure that the whole supply chain works. And so I think that's an opportunity for near-term cash flow. And then I'm looking forward to the results of the competent persons report for Bihor Sud.
Yeah, understood. final question: what does the road ahead look like for you and the company, and of course the news flow? What can we expect?
Very much like I just articulated. It's really the key things are around Norra Kärr. It's very much, do we get a mining lease decision this year? Then we move towards completing pre-feasibility study, and hopefully this time around a positive decision on the strategic project application. With Woxna, it's very much around getting the work done for that restart plan and the new business plan, and then what can we crystallize in terms of potential offtake discussions or something like that, and the funding as well, because I think that just to wind back a little bit, the Critical Raw Materials Act is great policy, but what I think I heard earlier this year was we need to see action, and when it comes to critical raw materials, we've seen the US, Canada, and Australia investing in both upstream assets and downstream processing. And we haven't quite seen that yet in Europe. But in order to compete with the Chinese, who have basically built their industries with state-sponsored strategies, but also funding mechanisms over decades, if we really want to play a serious game, then those avenues for finance and raising capital need to exist as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. It's a very fluid situation, I believe. And then lastly, we a clear planet for Romania from the CPR.
Kurt, I wish you luck with all three fronts, the Romania and of course your Sweden projects. That was Kurt Budge, CEO of Leading Edge Materials. Thank you very much for joining me today.